Good boy, Tucker.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
Hey.
Welcome.
Work smarter where you want.
Consistency is key.
And remember, if it's not in Redtail, it never happened.
This is learning at its most fun.
So good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. My name is Catherine Beltran, and I am a trainer here at Redtail Technology. Now, today we're actually going to tackle one of those how to handle situations, and in particular, the new employees concept. Now, I know there's kind of mixed emotions whenever we talk about that because, maybe it's exciting. We're flourishing in the industry right now. We have all this new business and it's too much for us to handle. So now we have to have someone new come on board, or maybe it's kind of that mixed emotion I was talking about where maybe we're losing someone who's been with us for a while and now we have to, go through that task of replacing them. But no matter what, it is a concept we come across and it's definitely something we all have to experience at some point or another. So we're going to kind of toggle between the PowerPoint today as well as our CRM. So you'll see me kind of flip-flop back and forth. But again, we're going to go through basically kind of what we recommend, some tools that'll help you. And again, always hold what we say as just kind of a recommendation. By no means do you have to do every single thing that we suggest. But let's actually hop into the CRM and start off with some pretty big topics. So just sliding on over, maybe. There we go. So now we are in our CRM. So I'm logged in as our training database. So I'm logged in as Tucker McLaughlin. And I actually am going to admit I cheated a little bit and I actually went ahead and created a new employee workflow. Now, if you've never built out a workflow, I will say it's not difficult. It can be a little tedious. I will say that. But if you've never built one out, you can actually come up to your name, come on down to manage your account, and down about halfway down the page, we'll have this concept of workflow templates. So again, I cheated and I definitely went ahead and I actually already pre-built this one out, but we are going to kind of work through this one. Now, obviously these first few tasks, I have more of an HR standpoint, the meet and greet, the W-4, I-9 forms, going over our mission statements, getting any other miscellaneous paperwork we have. Now, of course, I won't obviously go through all of that, but there are some things that are really important when it comes to those new employees and using the Redtail CRM. So again, this is that workflow we're going to go through. I'm actually going to go ahead and just launch it. So I'm going to come up to this quick add, come on down to workflows. I have my new employee. I put it right at the top. Now I set mine up so that way it does go ahead and fill in today's date, but I can always pick in today's date as well. And then I'm going to create my new workflow. So again, those first few tasks we have in here are definitely more HR related, but I wanted to leave them in here and I wanted to show this so that way we can definitely hold ourselves accountable and we're not sitting there going, did we get that paperwork back? Did we even send it? We're sitting there going, well, I don't even know if we've done it. So putting it in here helps us kind of avoid those things that might fall through the cracks. And again, it holds us accountable and gives us that responsibility. Now I'm going to kind of fast forward in a way and say that we've already done these particular items. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and mark these as complete. And I'm actually going to get to the first part that actually directly relates to our CRM. Now, again, it's about halfway down on this first step, but we have this update team notice. Now, when I hover over it, I actually have this kind of description. Now, if you're like me where I am impatient, I can't handle when it kind of goes away, I can always click that edit button. I can see this in here. But what it's saying is to update our team notice. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to copy this because I want this same formatting. But I also, again, want to actually create that team notice. Now to do that, I'm actually going to come to my name in the top right-hand corner or log in as our training Tucker McLaughlin. And I'm actually going to just open up the Manage New Account as a new tab at the top here. So when I come up here, I'll see my preference section. And the third one down, we actually have that Manage Team Notice. So in here, this is where we'll have kind of like those ticker updates. Think of this as a good spot for anything that's new, any important updates. If you are back in the office, maybe saying like who's in the office on those dates, or if there's any kind of construction going on around you, this is always a good spot to put that. And more importantly, it's actually a really good spot to say, hey, we've got a new person coming on board. So I'm just going to paste this back in here. But what this is just saying is that we can say welcome and then the actual name of the employee. So let's say that we're putting in my actual name. Say, welcome, Catherine. Team, please welcome our newest staff member. And again, we could put in our name. Now, I'm just filling in mine just because I want to give the exact example. But in here, this is where I'll say just welcome. So we can add in that team notice. Now, again, this is something that we'll see on that first login. So when we come over to that today page, about just a little bit down, this is where we'll see any of those really important team notices or motivational factors that we have, like this one says down here. But again, we can see those stickers and we can acknowledge that and go, oh yeah, we've got a new employee coming on board. So that's that update team notice. Now, this also gives me a great little show here that when we have these tasks open, I will also see those workflow tasks on my today page. So we went ahead and we did this, we updated that team notice. I can also complete from this page. So I can complete from this today page, or I can complete from this actual workflow page that I have open. Either or, again, it's going to give you that same result. So I'm going to go ahead and complete that task. And now the next one here is add in as a new user into the system. So again, I'm actually just going to toggle back over because I want to keep this open just to make sure I go through everything. But this time I do have to actually be an admin to do this. Now I'm going to come back over to my name again, back down to that manager account section, but this time we're going to go to this admins only section at the bottom. Now that third option right down here, this is where we'll actually click that manage database users and teams. Now from here, it's actually really simple. We're just going to come over to our right-hand side, click on that add, and then we'll add in a new user. Now we'll type in, usually there's some kind of format that we like in our office. Maybe sometimes it's like the first period last name. We might have something like this, or maybe we just have something like our first initial and our last name. Maybe it's just our last name, first initial. Again, however you want that kind of consistency for your usernames, this is where you'll establish that. Now the password and the password confirmation, think of these as like temporary passwords. When we actually have our new employee log in, we'll have them use the forget the password and reset it. So that way it is actually secure and private for their own. But again, think of this as just like a temporary password we're setting up. Now, the email address is definitely important. So before we even add them as a new user, we did have set up email account. And that is so that way when we do set that whole, forget password, or later down the road when our brains just aren't working that day, this is the email address that's going to get that, hey, log in and reset it. So if we put our own here, it's kind of a moot point. Make sure you actually put in that new employee's address here. Now the last three fields here are pretty obvious. It's filling out their actual first, middle, and last name here. So again, it's just a matter of pre-filling in that information. But the last box here is entirely up to you and really what that new employee's position is. If they are more of someone who's going to do a lot of the cleanup or is going to do a lot of kind of that organizational piece, you might find that making them an admin is extremely important. You might also find that, hey, maybe they're your new advisor coming on board and we already have things set up the way we like, and it's just a matter of really getting them acquainted to that. Then maybe you don't really want to set them as an admin. Again, it's completely optional. You can always change this later on. But again, just kind of weigh those. How much are they really going to be doing with that whole managed database list? And that might drive that decision on its own. So once you filled out all of this information and you add them as a user, then they actually are instantly available. They become a user on our database and they can log in to our actual database. So again, not very difficult, just a lot of pre-filling in there. But once you have it again done, that's just another task you mark off of this checklist. Now this next one kind of ties in directly with it. It's actually giving them that username and that login. So that way they can actually go ahead and access that here. Now the next one is actually a really interesting task here because in a way it's actually taking off from my plate and bringing it on to our actual new employees. So it says assign tasks in the next step of this workflow to the new employee. Now before I actually complete that and before I hop into the next step, I'm going to just kind of show you what that next step is. And it's actually the training of the CRM itself. So we have things like setting up your preferences, reviewing the style guide, all of these different tasks. But right in the middle, we have this whole concept of assign to me. I can actually come on over here just to this action icon just to the left of the task, come down to assign due, and then this is where I'd actually pick it. So I'm actually going to find my name here because I actually have mine open on the next page. And we're going to say that I'm actually the new employee. So I'm going to go through those tasks. So again, I'm just assigning these tasks over to me. So that way I actually have them when I log in. So again, just assign due, go through these tasks, assign my name, and I'll go ahead and complete that. Now, what I will also show, I'm going to leave one of these perfectly as is, just so you can see kind of the alternative, and or if you're trying to get them to kind of learn workflow tasks at the same time, I'll leave one as an assigned to me so that way you can see it. So I'll leave assigned due. Last one I'll do here, update that task. All right. So again, assign task in the next steps, went ahead and did that. I'm going to leave this on purpose just so you can see what that looks like. But again, now we're all complete here. So this is the last task for this particular step. Now, I know for a fact, just because I've set it up, I have no outcomes. So when there's no outcomes with a workflow, it's just going to immediately push me forward into that next step. It's not going to prompt me to put anything in here. I'm going to go ahead. Oops, looks like I actually missed one here. There it is. It's went ahead, got completed, put today's date because we completed everything. And now we have these next tasks open. So again, this is one of those things that we just have it already assigned to me, except for this one. Now, I went ahead and I actually logged in as my own that has this username. So I'll toggle over to that one so you can see it in a second. But here's where we actually can start to go through and say, hey, here's everything you should learn, because this is what we do on a daily basis. These are those tools we use. So I'm going to actually just, again, I'm going to swipe further over even. I'm going to refresh my page. And right over here on this right-hand side, I now have 5 active workflow tasks. If I click into this, these are actually going to be that new employee workflow that we went ahead and we actually set up. If I actually just click on this one here, it's going to open that task. So now that I'm logged in as my own, if I click this assign to me now I can go ahead and populate my name. So if you do kind of want to like test them a little bit, you want to kind of give that experience, I should say, you can always have like a task in here that says reassign a task to yourself. So that way they can get that practice as well. Now, the first one that we have in here is just a very basic concept, but it's extremely important, and that's setting up your preferences. Now, again, preferences are user specific. So just because one person has it one way doesn't mean that another person can have it something else. So when I come up here, and again, I'm just going to right click and open that up in a new tab. Again, that's just your name and then preferences. When I come over here, this is where I can decide all of those things that really set up how I view things. So time zones, what screen I want to default when I click on contacts, how long I want my activity durations, how I want my calendar to look. Do I want to see the weekends? Do I want to see completed activities? Do I want to hide those things? Do I want to see actual workflow tasks on my calendar? So all of these things are all, again, user specific, but this is something that you are going to want that new employee to set up. So that way, if they have it set to Pacific time and you're sitting on the East Coast, we're not sitting there going, well, Catherine, you've booked us incorrectly every single activity you've done. Don't set ourselves up for failure. Definitely get these preferences set up. Now, again, once we have these all, maybe this is exactly how I like it, this is where I can come back and then I'm going to actually start marking them complete on my end here. So again, I'm logged in as my own, complete that activity. Now I'm going to start to get into more of those in-depth discussions that's talking about Redtail. Now, style guide is actually a big concept that we like to push here, but I know there's probably some faces out there going, what in the world is a style guide? So what is a style guide? I'm going to come on back to my PowerPoint, and a style guide is actually our way of really helping define what it is that we have in our system. So if we want to be able to have kind of, again, like a cheat sheet in a way that easily defines what a lead with a warm category means, what a prospect with a lost category means, what an active client with AAA category means. It's helping us clarify and understand really what it is that we're segmenting with our contacts. And again, it also can help define more of that frequency with communications. Something that I get very frequently within our trainings is, Well, I need to figure out how I want to differentiate how often I talk to my clients. My AAAs, I want to talk to, every 3 months. My AAs, twice a year, and my single A's are just once a year. Again, we can help define that here with the style guide. Now, I'm not asking you to reinvent the wheel because I know sometimes we're sitting there going, I don't even know where to begin. But if we actually come on back, and if we actually come to our help, our little question mark, our help desk here, I'm going to click on that here. And I'm actually going to just come up to style guide. We actually have a couple examples, as well as you can actually build off of a template. So this explains really everything there is, gives some examples, but all the way at the bottom, you can actually download basically a blank one, or again, a completed one, so that way you can kind of compare. Now, I'm also going to show you one other thing that I did with this workflow. I actually put that same place that we had that website we were just on. You can click on that in the information, and then it walks it through. So again, if that new employee is sitting there going, what's a style guide? They can kind of get that recap here. And again, you could even put in your own link, maybe attach it as a document on the contact record, whatever the case might be. That again is just going to give that example of what it is. So that again is a style guide. It's reviewing it so that way they understand what each status, what each category, what activity type is supposed to mean, all of those things that are a little bit more monotonous for us, but again, they're brand new for them. It's help getting that explanation. So again, I'm going to go ahead and mark that as complete. And then the next one here, similar in concept, I actually put another link with this one, watch recorded training videos. So again, getting them up to speed without us literally sitting there hovering over their computer going like, okay, click there. We have a bunch of recorded tutorials that can go over all of this information. So more of a general, hey, here's right out of the gate, these are the things you should worry about. Navigational tips, calendar and activity things. So again, more of those basic comments that we ourselves might not have touched for years and have gotten so used to doing it that it's second nature, but it's new to them. So getting those basics under their belt will again just help set them up for success there. Now the next one here actually ties in exactly with what tool we're using, which is the workflow series. It's one thing to understand that just clicking complete and where to find them, because again, I can find it from my today page over here with my workflow tasks themselves. I can come over to workflows over here. If I have my preferences set up, I can actually find them on my calendar as well. So again, all of those different locations that you can find them. But if the new employee that you're bringing on board is actually the one that's going to start help build those workflows, this is a great series again to watch, because we break it down piece by piece by piece. So what do I do before I even hop into the CRM? That's the whole conceptualizing and whiteboarding. Now I have it all kind of rough drafted out. Now what? Now you could actually build it. Okay, it's built. Now what? Now it's actually applying that workflow. So again, I just put that link within this workflow itself, just so it's really easy to pop back and forth, because maybe today I can get 2 of those videos done and tomorrow I'll get the next 2. But if it is an expectation for, again, that new employee to build out those workflows, this is a good series again to tune into to get those questions answered. Now, one more thing that I always like to point out with these videos, when it is a certain webinar, and this was actually a 4-part series of webinars, I should say, all the way at the bottom, there are also helpful links. So again, if we're sitting there, we're not really a video person, we're more of a, I like to read it and understand it. There's also all of these different links down here that again can help us just get started. There's also sample workflows. So again, maybe it's not so much the concept we're stuck on. We get what we're supposed to do, but we're just not sure really where to begin. Always feel free to hop into these sample workflow templates so that way you can see, okay, I didn't even think about that one. Oh, prospecting. All right, we do that as well. So again, there's all of these different samples that new employee, as well as yourself even, can really look back on, get that understanding so that way they can, again, build it going forward. So again, just going to mark that as complete. And then the next one here, I actually do recommend. So right now, this workflow is not linked to a contact, but I would actually recommend, just for practice purposes, have your new employee add themselves as a contact in the record. It's very, very easy for us to just make the assumption that everything makes sense when you go to add a new contact, but we often might find ourselves sitting there going, oh, they left this field blank. Oh, they didn't understand this field. So this is really putting that style guide into practice. It's putting in, again, that understanding of what it is, and it's really sparking those questions now versus, a week from now when we actually have to add in another contact. So adding ourselves in here. So again, coming up to that quick add, coming on down to contacts, literally adding ourselves in here. So again, it's practicing all of that information. Now, once that contact has actually been added, you can definitely at that point link this workflow to that contact. Because if you actually just come back up here, if we've now added ourselves, I can search for me here, put that as the link contact, and now that workflow exists on my own new employee contact record. So again, it's just all of that different practice of using those different tools, using those different features that we have in here. So that way, again, it's almost training in its own right. So adding ourselves, I know it might be weird at first, but adding ourselves as the contact is, again, that good practice. Now, one very, very popular question I tend to get is, well, I have a bunch of new employees, or I have an intern that's starting soon, and I need something quick. I need to get them through establishing really what those features mean. And the one video recording standard that I always recommend is actually any of them that are listed as Redtail Essentials. So when I come over here to those recorded Redtail webinars, any of these that have this essentials in here, those are going to be the most in-depth discussion on those particular tools. So if you are sitting there going, what in the world am I supposed to do with this seminar? I don't even know what each thing's supposed to be meaning. This is going to give you the most in-depth discussion on what those fields are, how you can use it, what you can do with it. So again, any of these that are listed as Redtail Essentials are really those first videos that I'd recommend tuning in and getting that understanding. Now, of course, there's always like how to handle situations like the webinar we're doing today. But again, just to get the quick, hey, new employee, I need you to know this, Redtail Essentials is going to be your biggest in-depth discussion. Now, again, this is the last task that's under this particular workflow. This is just the one that we built. There's definitely more things that you can put in here. If there's, maybe you want to add a new activity with yourself to give them that experience. Maybe you want to put in here as a task of reviewing those templates that you've built out. Again, don't be afraid that just because I have it set up this way doesn't mean that you can't do it differently. You're going to find there's certain things that you guys just implement a little different. Now, if you are looking at this workflow flow though, and you're going, I just wish I had this one, then I will say we actually did model it off of one that is available on our help desk. It's also part of this presentation, which I will also put on our icon as well. But there is, again, more of this basic standard that we have. So you can always start off with this new employee workflow. Maybe you like, again, just the little details of it, but there's certain things that you do differently. You can always add in your own new tasks, add in your own new steps, whatever it is that's missing in the current one we have. But the one reason why I'd always recommend having, again, this new employee workflow concept is one, it helps create that consistency. I'm not sitting there going, whoops, I forgot this, whoops, I forgot that. There's always this understanding that anytime I have this situation, I just can populate that information and work through it like a literal checklist. It also helps organize it. So I'm big on, if it's not in there, there's no way I'm going to be able to read your mind and figure it out. It, again, adds that accountability with that organization by putting it into our actual CRM as tasks for us to do. And then again, it also ensures that accuracy. So it comes back in with that whole consistency and organization. If we apply those tasks to those contacts, it's one, giving us that practice, whether again, we're newer or we're not, but it's also, again, keeping into account that these are those items that, again, should be crossed off that list. So you can actually find the same workflow on our help desk. And the one other thing that I'd also recommend as well, because this is actually the last of that last task in that step, the next one here is just saying, hey, once you're ready in a year from now, you're supposed to go ahead and schedule that annual review. So if you can hardly believe it, we'll be in 2021 and hopefully, it's a better year next year. But we have that, again, that assignment to check in and go, hey, it's a year's past. Let's talk about how you did, things like that. So we set that up. And again, we have this as a full year out. You could always set it up, beforehand. Maybe you have it under like the 11/5, the date we have here, and you schedule it that far out. Again, entirely optional on how you do that. But again, it is something that I wanted to stress here. Now, all of the things that I ran through here, adding the new employee, the actual workflow that we've done in here, again, just slightly different, few little tasks that are different, going through and saying, hey, here's those steps that we should take. We actually did also assemble basically a how to handle new employee. So you can always go through it through Redtail training. I always like to take the easy way out and just do a quick little search. And I actually just searched new employee. And right here, the very first thing we have is actually walking through that step. So again, if you're more of a visual, just reading, I'd rather not listen in, I want to do it myself. This is also a good place to come back here and say, okay, here's how we add in that new employee. Because I remember Catherine saying something, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. Again, you can find this by just clicking on that question mark, coming to our help desk, and then if you just search new employees, it should be that first page that actually populates. So that is actually, if you can believe it, everything that we have in there in terms of that workflow process of onboarding that new employee. Now, again, there might be some things out there that you'd also like to add to that workflow, or maybe you're not really a workflow person, you want it just as a new activity to bullet through. Again, entirely up to how you operate, but keep track of that in Redtail. It always ties into that. If it's not in Redtail, it didn't happen. Keep track of everything that it is that you're doing and everything that that new employee is doing.
Thanks so much for joining us today for this particular session. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 800-206-5030, option 3 for support, or just shoot us an email over to support@redtailtechnology.com. Thanks a lot and have a great day.